Mr. Palmer. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, man.
I'm loving it. You get to groove out to the drum beat, and people around the world, all few of them, get to actually witness it. It's awesome. Because we decided to do something crazy over the holiday season. Because
Yeah, because I'm a
appreciate that.
glutton. I'm a glutton for punishment, and it's a holiday, and so why would I? Jermon now says he's got diversity receive going. I'm,
There you go.
but
I mean,
man, if that timing is off between the two platforms, holy crap, that would suck.
you got to start like seizing or something. I, I just, and I'm doing my best not to watch the feed, which is on my lower left corner, which nobody can see because I'm doing the hand gestures off camera. Um, but what's the worst that could happen, man? It's a live stream with us, and when we record and edit it, we go off the rails pretty consistently. So what's the worst that can happen live?
Yeah, I mean nothing, right? I mean this is gonna
Yeah,
go flawlessly. So,
I
no,
exactly.
no pressure, John. It's
I eat pressure for breakfast. Actually, no. Today I had s'more cereal, but that's okay.
oh, okay.
Way more information than anybody wanted to know about me.
I had coffee.
Well,
That's
that's safe.
that's generally all I have anyway. Um, so what are we doing today, John? Why did we decide to do this holiday? You know, is- whoa,
What's this wee stuff?
oh, okay. So this is all me. So I'll I'll,
Okay.
t- I'll take the lead on this one. Um,
Well, yeah, I'll let you have this. Go ahead.
So for the longest time, I've been trying to figure out like how I can do. I wanted to. We talk about this all the time with Ruckus. We say, hey, you know what? We have these Ruckus APs now that you can see them. I got three APs sitting on the shelf here behind me next to my Rubik's cube, and some other single board computers. Oh, look, there's my WLAN Pi right there. And we always talk about the fact that, with Ruckus, you can have your APs doing different operating systems, different control platforms. And, and we did like the controller cage match. We've done all this other stuff. And so like this AP that I have right here, that's an R610 and that's on Ruckus 1. And then this AP over here is an R710 and that's on Ruckus Unleashed. And then my R560 up here, that's on a virtual smart zone. And so, we've talked about the fact that we can have these APs running on these different platforms and how it's really quick and simple and easy to make the change, to make the transition. It's like, hey, pick what you want, right? And I've always, sort of joked about it. And I said, I want to figure out a way that I can actually take a single AP and run it through all. And there's actually four different platforms. Here, right there. We have four different control platforms with Ruckus. And I've always wanted to kind of be like, hey, how long does it take me to go from what comes out of the box, take it to all different platforms, and get an SSID up and running and all that stuff. So I was like, but I was always struggling with how do I show that? How do I demonstrate that, about how quick and easy it is? Because you can edit anything. I can lie if I'm doing like a live tweet or anything like that. So a few months ago, you and I started talking about bringing video back for the podcast, and now we have our video. And so as I was thinking about it, I was like, hey, I can actually use this instead of writing a blog, instead of doing a live tweet or anything like that, because I was like, and we can hopefully make it fun and make it interactive and stuff like that. And so that's what we decided to do for our very first live stream, or what I decided to do. And I said, hey, John, this is what we're going to do. And I said, you're going to come along and help, keep an eye on the chats, keep an eye on make sure everything's working while I go through everything, and so that's what we're doing today.
I mean, I figured you just brought me on because I make you look good because you look better than this. So,
I don't, I mean,
I'm
really?
not here for my looks.
I'm backwards here. So, I mean, the reason, so it is vacation, so I haven't cut my hair in a while. I did shave for everybody, so you're welcome. But I'm seeing now why I keep my hair short is,
Mm.
the graying there. Yeah, that's, anyways. So,
So, looks like we're actually live. We're actually getting viewers. We've actually gotten at least one spammer on Twitch, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Gearmond is saying that Twitch is a little bit ahead of YouTube, so he's probably favoring Twitch. And I'm just trying not to watch the screens because it's really, really
Yeah.
messing with me. And Gearman, just for the fun of it, he's a little bit blurrier than I am, only because I was in town with our GM and got him
Senior vice president, or
drinks.
yeah,
He's the big dog.
the big
and
dog.
I got him to approve the upgraded equipment, and I wasn't on vacation when Jim was, so I already got mine.
Yeah.
And I'm staring at mine. So Jim's is a legitimate webcam. Mine is a DSLR. So I think what you're seeing is probably just a little bit better camera gear, but Jim is going to rectify that post haste.
Yeah, whatever.
It's
That
actually kind
means.
of nice to be able to interact with the chat without actually chatting back, and it's
Yeah.
okay. I'm a dork. I can admit it.
All right.
So. Yeah, and you mentioned that you wanted to do this, but full disclosure and sort of the shameless plug of the podcast. If you didn't mention the episode, I can't remember. It was one of the last couple we did. We did the controller shootout, basically, or the
Controller cage match.
Thank you, cage match. It makes sense. And that was, I think that helped kind of spur this on a little bit because we covered Unleashed standalone. We didn't cover standalone, but we covered Unleashed. Excuse me, Ruckus 1 and Virtual Smart Zone, and I mean, like you said, I mean, I've been here. I'm coming up on my 3-year anniversary. Literally, it's on Tuesday. And it's been one of the things that you've said to me countless times since I've been here. That just how cool it is to be able to flip from one to the other, to the other. And in relatively short order with usually, and I say usually because it's a live demo, what's the worst that could happen? We usually no glitches or hiccups or not much. So... And I know you've had this idea for a little bit, and now we've got the idea and the wherewithal to do it, and we've got an audience, which is not at all terrifying. And yeah, let's. I'm here for the window dressing and the witty banter.
Yeah,
and yeah, if we
keep me honest as I go through this, and because I'll probably forget to say something or forget to point something out, and yeah, I'm gonna do some screen sharing from a laptop, my second laptop, and my phone, and I got to do some different firewall stuff to make this all work. So yeah, nothing can go wrong. So let me set the stage. Let me set this for the adventure we're all about to go through. Let me set the stage. So what I have is I have a Ruckus R550. Yay! I really like this AP. If I were to move my camera up just a little bit, right up in this area, I have an R350. But man, the R550, I dig this AP. So I grabbed it mainly because I have two in case I need to join a second one. So that's the first thing I needed. I needed an AP. I got an AP. The second thing I needed to do was I needed to go to the website. And so we might as well, let me see if we can share something and see how this works. We are going to share. So I had to get some firmware. Let's see if this actually, yay. It's trying to load. It's trying to load.
It's got performance anxiety.
It does. And and I'm not even using Wi-Fi. This is all wired in. So the funny thing is I'm actually seeing this on Twitch, but I'm not seeing it on, there we go. He finally caught up to us. So anyway, so you go to, it's actually support.ruckuswireless.com. So I went here, went down to the indoor APs. There's the R770, and I scrolled down until I got to these are all the supported APs. If you have an older AP, when you get down at the bottom, all the supported APs, there's a link to the end of life, end of support APs that you can click on to go get those firmwares, like the R500, the R600, stuff like that. So I went here to the R550. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not, I didn't log in. Now to download, you do have to log in, but it's not behind a paywall. Anybody can go create an account on support.ruckuswireless.com. And as long as it's an email address that you can respond to and confirm it, hey, this is an active email address, you can get in. And so we're going to come down here to downloads right there. Now, for this, I needed a standalone. And the standalone versions start with 100. So when you click on the versions, as soon as it all catches up to me, see, I didn't count on lag being a problem, but it is. So anyway, just trust me. Oh, there we go. Now we're catching up. So the standalone versions start with 100. So some of the older ones will be like 104. There's a 106, I think, maybe. Or then there's a 110, 114, 118. So I went and got the 118 download for NASA standalone. So I went and got that for the R550. The other one that I got was the Unleashed standalone, because I need those versions for, let's see. Oh, I know what it is. It's not sharing the pop-up. So when you hit the show there on the on the right hand side, a whole window pops up and it shows all of the different firmwares, but it's not coming through on the recording. So you basically, so this one, so I went and pulled the 200.14. That's the Unleashed. Anything that starts with 200 is Unleashed. So you can go back and you can see my mouse moving on a window that you can't see, a little pop-up. And so now this is 200.12, but I went and I pulled 200.14. So that's the first thing that I did, is I went ahead and I downloaded the firmware I was going to need. I made sure I had standalone firmware. Even though it comes on the AP, you're going to need it for this adventure. And I also pulled down the Unleashed. The other thing I did is I have my phone that is currently connected to my laptop that we're showing. And I have the app. There's a mobile app for the Ruckus 1 and for Ruckus Unleashed. So I went ahead and I downloaded those. The other thing I have is I do have an account for my Ruckus 1, and I have licenses on that. I have my VSE that's running and licensed in my house. So I'm going to end up utilizing that. And the last thing that I need, that now I can't find, which is the most important thing, oh, it's over here on this side, is I have, let me stop sharing so you can see it. Stop sharing. I have my handy dandy little reset pin. Now, on other APs, I'm always really, I was very hesitant to use this little reset tool when it comes in the AP. But with my Ruckus one, I hit the reset button all the freaking time, just because it's so.
That pin comes with the AP?
Well, it used to.
I was gonna say, I've never ever found one.
Well,
if I just learned something new on a live stream of our own making, this would be hilarious. Don't tell me it's in the bag with like the booklet and all that stuff that I always think about. It's in the accessory bag.
It's in, yeah. Well, they used to. I've found on some of the newer ones, they don't always include them.
Mainly, one I'm using on mine for what it's worth, I have some little. I don't know if I've got them. I actually do. In my, and I can show it because we're on camera. I have like a little Allen key that I've gotten with like a lot of the different desk accessories. And the other thing that works well, and I think it does reach, is when we used to get in the good old days. Well, a paperclip is always good, but the SIM ejector tools that you used to get with your mobile phones,
yeah,
I believe will reach the pin or the button, whatever it is inside. I didn't know they used to come with a pin. Now I got to look.
Yeah,
that would be funny.
So yeah, I might have, even though I have a couple of the pins, I actually have some paper clips as well that's how you know you're a networking guy, is when you have like, and my granddaughter likes to take the actual pins and she likes to take them off and run with them. So that's why I have these. So I have 4 reset pins on my desk.
I've got a drawer full of things that are small enough to get into that and
Yeah.
work in a pinch.
Okay. So now that we spent 15 minutes in that, oh, yeah, it is in there. Right there.
I'm going to have to open up my. I don't think I have one at home, but I'm going to have to open up one that I do have in storage and look. That'll be funny because admittedly I don't open that up when I'm putting stuff up in the house because I custom mount them. I don't use the mounting brackets.
Okay.
Learn something new every day. Thank you, Jim.
All right. So got my AP. This one is actually one of the very first ones because it doesn't have the Ruckus logo. I have another one here that actually does have the Ruckus logo. So anyway, we'll break that one out later. Okay, so I have a switch behind me that is set up on a lab VLAN using a MikroTik. And if you are still if you haven't registered for WLPC, go ahead and register, sign up for John's deep dive, and it'll teach you how to use the MikroTik for doing stuff like this so that I can do this. And my granddaughter and my wife don't get pissed off when I end up putting in a firewall rule that, cuts off the AP from talking to the internet. So, yeah. So I plugged it into my switch, and my switch is now not work. Oh, I guess if I plugged into the PoE one, that might actually make the PoE light come on. Yeah, I plugged it into the wrong port because this actually has the second Ethernet port on it.
Yeah.
So
$1 for every time I've done that, I'd have a few bucks.
Yeah. So anyway, so now we're going to sit and we're going to let this guy come online, power up, and I'll show those lights here. The red is like the initial power up, and then we get the steady blinking green. That's like a boot up. Hey, I'm actually now booting firmware, and then when this light right here starts to blink, that tells me that we're now into a controller phase. And that's when we can actually start doing something with this AP. And we'll take a look at the standalone version that actually comes on this AP. So I'll hold this up here in a little bit, but for right now, I'm going to set it down to where I can see the...
Now's as good a time as any to touch the sore subject that is, if you're looking at a brand new, what's it, 560, 670, one of the newer ones only has a single light.
The 770 only has a single light, and because I'm afraid that one of the people watching might be the bosses, yes, it looks very good.
My whole point is we're going to have to redo this video when we get the newer AP out so that we can explain the blinky lights in much more complex fashion because you've got one light instead of 5.
And there are guides that you can find that tell you what all the blinking lights mean, but it's pretty self-explanatory the first time you go through it, so it's not that bad. However, the single light, well, the first time I used it was massively confusing, and the first thing I did was send a message to Tofu, the APPLM, and I said, I need an LED guide, and I need it now. And he sent me one, so there is the guide that you can go find for that one. Okay, so we now have a steady blinking light. That tells me that I can go find the IP address on my hex, which I guess in theory I could share, but I want. And my hex timed out, so let me refresh that, log in. I want to go to IP DHCP server leases. And the lease that just came up is 195. So I'm going to write down that IP address because we're going to use it a lot. 10.195. Yeah. I need more coffee. All right. So here we go. I am now going to share from my other screen here. We are going to come back to my browser. Wait for everybody to catch up. I see it on Twitch. I'm getting impatient. So now I'm going to open up a browser tab, and I'm going to go to my IP address, 10.22.102.195. All right.
Dude, now I can totally hack your network from here.
Yeah, that's if you can get through the 2 firewalls to get to this. So this is
joke.
well, you go ahead and hack it. I mean, it's a 10 address.
Exactly, it's a bad joke.
Yeah. So anyway, here's the login screen. Now, this is why I have a second AP. Because if you don't have an IP address, if you were to do this on a standalone, it comes up with a default IP address, which is on there of 192.168.0.1, and the default username and password. We'll get to that in a little bit. Put that there. So if you're a Ruckus user, you know this super SP-admin. I am not giving anything away. And the first thing it does is it makes you change the password. So yes, it is on the bottom of the AP. It is, something that everybody who's ever used Ruckus knows. Hey, the default username and password is super, or the username is super, and the password is sp-admin. But the new password. So then we're gonna use a new password. Actually, so I can remember it, we're going to do the super secret Ruckus 123.
No, it'll break that one.
Yeah, not a chance. So now we can do super and Ruckus 123. I should write that down because we're going to use that one a lot today. All right. So now that we're in, this is the standalone firmware. I've known people that have actually run their houses on the standalone firmware. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. The one thing that is cool about there's two awesome things about standalone. One is if you're going to do an AP on a stick, it's already there, right? You can come in and you go, oh, what I want a radio. I'm going to, I can set my common stuff like, hey, I'm going to put it. What channel do I want it on? The country code, and then I can come in and I can actually build my SSIDs in here, and I can change that. Or no, that's status. I need to go into configuration. So here we go. So now we can name it in here. We can, the mode we want, channel width. I can come in, I can set my SSID, I can broadcast it, I can set all that, again, access VLAN. It's all here. It's all simple, right? And so you could set up and run a very super simple sort of, hey, I just need to get an AP for an AP on a stick or something like that. I can set it all here and be done in seconds. I just have to power it up, log in, change the password, and I'm off to the races. The other thing that's cool is down here in this maintenance section. Down here, we have an upgrade, we have a reboot or reset, and some support stuff. But this is standalone. Done. Finished. AP on a stick. That's it. No special things. And standalone comes on all of the APs. So, yeah, you just need to get an SSID running. This is even faster than Unleashed, like you were talking about. But now we're going to go to Unleashed. So I'm going to do an upgrade right here. Now I can do a TFTP, an FTP, a web, or I can do a local. I'm going to do a firmware. And so since I already did this, we're going to come down here to my documents, my Ruckus AP firmware. Here's my R550, and we want to go to Unleashed. So I'm going to select the 200.14 code that I downloaded before, and I'm going to open that. So now
it's not showing that screen, Jim, but we can't see your files.
Oh, well, that sucks.
But just imagine the files are there. I saw them yesterday. I can vouch for them. They're legitimately downloaded. He's got it very nicely organized. I just mine in my downloads folder. So.
Oh, you know what? When I toggle back, I'll share, instead of just sharing the browser, I'll share the whole screen. That's what I'm doing wrong. I'm sharing the wrong thing. But again, it was local. and I just browsed my download folders, or actually I have it in a whole separate folder for all my firmwares. And
Yeah,
then,
he's very organized. Very organized.
well, the last time, I mean, with all the different firmwares for all the different models, the last time you want to be farting around trying to figure out where your firmware is when you need it. And so I've learned that in the past when I was in an event and I needed a firmware, and it was like all of a sudden I was like, crap, I can't find it, and it was a pain in the ass. So I said I have to do better at organizing all my stuff, and that way I have what I need and I know where to find it. So now we're going to perform the upgrade, and it's now loading. So now it's going to go through a process where it's going to upgrade the firmware from the standalone, and we're going to go into unleashed. And it's gonna do that upgrade, and so it takes a second to do all that stuff. So now we can chit chat and we can do other things while we're waiting on the firmware because the firmware will load, and then it's going to reboot, and then it has to load the unleashed firmware. And so from the upgrade or the changing perspective, it's super simple. The only problem you have is just it's not instantaneous. But I mean, look, if you've done an overnight window or a firmware upgrade,
Nothing is.
yeah, I need a new chair. I should have asked for a new chair for Christmas. So yeah, now my light's red. I don't know if you can see that. And my AP is rebooting. It's doing the. So that's part of the firmware process. Is it does that reboot, and now it's actually, I got that blinking green light. Right there.
Okay.
And so that's telling me that it's actually loading something. You know, it's doing that firmware, and then it'll go through its whole process. The unleashed takes the longest because you're not just loading new firmware, you're loading controller firmware. So the other ones are a lot quicker and easier because it's a lightweight firmware, and so it's you don't have to have all that control stuff built in. That's faster. So this is really the longest time.
Now, so while we're waiting for that, Gearman did ask a question, and I don't know, you're looking at your Twitch, but he asked if you reset a AP, will it go back to standalone, or where does it wind up going?
I'm glad you asked that because we're going to see it. And so, yeah, so now if you look on my screen, you can see it's building the Unleashed network. It might take a few minutes, and it does. And when I look at my AP, I got the power light is kind of a slower blinking on and off, but that controller light is
it's not blinking at all.
Well, it's depending on what it is, but when that controller light's blinking really fast, that means it's actually building, or it's talking. It's happy. It's doing something. That's what you want. If it's a slower blinking, that means it's waiting and searching. This is, I found what I'm looking for, and now I'm doing something. And what it's doing is it's building the Unleashed network. But to answer the question, what's going to happen, this is why I have my reset little pin, is in order to bounce between all the different firmwares, we have to use the reset pin. Now, depending on which firmware you're currently on, it's kind of interesting because you might go back to if you're on standalone and you hit reset, then it's standalone. If you're on Unleashed and you hit reset, then it takes you to the first page of the Unleashed master wizard, and basically rebuilds from there. But I'm going to show you something when we get to that stage here in a few minutes. I'm going to show you what you can do there. Now, for Ruckus 1 and Ruckus Smart Zone, when you hit the reset button, it takes you back to what looks like standalone. But when you look at the firmware, it actually has different firmware. So it's a very limited interface, because it's basically saying, hey, this is a lightweight interface of standalone, but it still gives you that ability to upgrade. And so basically what we're going to do over the next half hour, 40 minutes, is do that upgrade. The other thing that's interesting about this, and I've had this on some APs that I've used in events, and I put into a box and I pulled them out 2 years later and turned them on. As soon as I turned them on and they powered up, they started broadcasting the SSID from 2 years ago, even though they're not connected to anything. And because the controller that I was using for the event is, not powered up yet. And so that's still blinking. And if I refresh this, we get a security warning. Oh, yeah, because the Ruckus APs have self-signed certificates, and so you are going to get that that security warning because it's self-signed, and because generally it's not talking to the internet. But you can fix that if it bothers you. You can put on a different certificate on the AP to where you don't get that. I change them around so much. I'm like, I'm not going to fart around with it and do it. So yeah, so it's still building the Unleashed firmware is still trying to build and come online. So that's going to take a minute, but yeah, so it'll still work. That's the one thing that actually causes me problems in doing a demonstration like this is the AP is so resilient that if you don't put in crazy firewall rules in order to keep things from talking to each other, like if I were just power up this AP on my normal network, it would automatically find, depending on which network I put it on, it would either start joining my current Unleashed right there or my current smart zone. So I have to put those on different subnets on different VLANs and then build firewall rules to keep those things from talking just so I can keep them running. And that's one of the challenges I have with having, all these different APs, because these are just the 3 lab APs I have right now. Now I have a 4th AP, but I also have an AP that's sitting on the wall kind of behind me a little bit. And then I have the rest of the house APs. And so trying to make that all work is really hard because the Ruckus AP wants to work and it does everything in its power to make sure that you're broadcasting an SSID and your Wi-Fi is running. And so it does become, a challenge in trying to do stuff like this where you're purposely trying to break stuff because it's just that resilient. And yeah, I've powered up an AP and it's broadcasting the SSID from 2021. You're like, wow, it's 2023 and I'm still broadcasting an SSID, even though the controller's not there. So you hit the little reset, the SSID goes away, but you then have what looks like a standalone, but the firmware, and I should have showed that, but the firmware version will be from the smart zone or whatever it was currently talking to when it was powered off. So this is still, we'll close that. Yeah, that's the IP address. Here we go. My browser cached it. So, to answer the question before we get to it, or to follow up, when we look down here in this lower right, we see the version. So the version is 200.14. And right below that is a local upgrade. And so this is what we're going to use when we want to come off of Unleashed. So we have our username for the administrator, and this will be our Ruckus live stream. We're going to use the passphrase of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, and you get a little warning if you don't put the right passphrase in. And then here we can reset.
Royal luggage.
I'm sorry?
It's the same passcode on my royal luggage.
And so here you can also set the administrator. So you have your WLAN, which we're going to call Ruckus Livestream, the passphrase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we have the administrator, and we can reset that passphrase. So, and you can go change all this stuff later in Unleashed, but for right now, we're just going to stick with the same one of Ruckus. And yeah, if you don't have enough, the little warning pops up down there at the bottom and says hey, that doesn't work. So we're just going to use Ruckus 123 and we're going to click finish. And now it's going to restart. So now we're going to, it's processing. You can see that down in the lower right. And now it's configuring the system and rebooting. And so what's going to happen is now it's going to build the SSID. It's going to build the new administrator. If we had changed the password, if we had changed the credentials for the administrator, and of course, the credentials, can be whatever you want it, and then later you can set it up to where you can authenticate against an Active Direct and an AD, or I think the latest one supports TACACS. I probably wrong on that one, but anyway. So that is that's how you can configure it. And I think you mentioned it on the controller cage match, where if you need to get something up and running, in a hurry, this is how you can do it. If you just need an SSID for an hour or two, or like an AP on a stick, then standalone will actually work and is faster. And again, it's super simple, but the standalone firmware really, we didn't talk about it, but it's what is key to being able to move between the different platforms, because it's that initial starting point. And so we can get back to the one, like I said, I have 114 or 118 standalone code. 114 is what shipped on the R550 when it first came out. Now I think we discovered 118 came out earlier this month. So yeah, and you can go get, if you want the latest one, you can go update to the latest 118 code for your standalone. But that's that base firmware that will work when you say, hey, I'm going to point it to either Ruckus One or to Smart Zone. As long as I'm on that standalone firmware, then it's super. It just works. It's all built to function off of that. And so, we're still configuring. We'll wait till the little bar goes off, and then we'll go through that real quick.
Yeah, and you were right. I did mention on the cage match, Jim, that Unleashed is. I've used it a couple times when I've had to set up like test beds real quick for a customer. It's the best option, or at least for me, it was the best option to get something running quickly that worked, that did everything they needed to do, that was configurable. It was, it's got an easy enough user interface, I think, to where even a non-wireless person can get in and know what they're doing. I had, a test person that wasn't a wireless person, that knew enough from like a home networks perspective, and I said on the cage match as well, it's not to disparage the interfaces at all, but to me the feel of Unleashed reminded me of some of the more prosumer type interfaces, which in the sense of they're very friendly. You kind of can figure out very easily where everything is to do what you need to do. And the other point I made on the cage match, as we're waiting for your device to almost be done loading, there's the reason why anybody that has Ruckus gear, when they leave Ruckus, this is what they use. Like, this is what they keep going back to run their gear when they're no longer with Ruckus. They don't have the controller. They might not have the access to the code anymore. Like you said, standalone works great, but it's got limitations and it's not really suited for running a house. Ruckus One, which we didn't get to yet, will cost money. It's not a freebie, right? So you leave Ruckus, you don't have access to that anymore. Unleashed, that's the sweet spot for a lot of home users. Saying that as a guy who runs his house on a controller, but
So one thing I've learned is especially with the way my network is configured here at the house, using the URL unleash.ruckuswireless.com sometimes doesn't work because of DNS issues. So if you have the IP address, you can always get into it to the IP address. So I switched and went to that, and then we'll type admin ruckus123. That gets us in, and we now have we're now running on Unleashed. So we can come in and we can look at Wi-Fi networks, and we can say, hey, yeah, our Ruckus live stream SSID is here. And I think what we're gonna do here is I want to go through this really quick. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on this because, well, it's not the point of it. We could do a whole series on breaking this stuff down. But we can see clients, the access points, and this is kind of the difference. Here, let me collapse the Wi-Fi networks. So yeah, the Wi-Fi networks, the clients, the access points. I think it was 200.14 came out, or 213 came out with a dedicated master. So on bigger networks, you can say, hey, I'm just going to have an AP dedicated to be my master. You can do switches. And again, this always drives me insane because it's trying to connect to my office switch, even though my office switch is being managed by my smart zone, and it's just very resilient. But this will show you your ports information connected with warnings and stuff if it was working. But it's trying to be like, hey, I'm plugged into a Ruckus switch, so I'm going to manage it. And then down here in admin and services is all kinds of joyful fun stuff that you can come in and do. AAA servers, access control, application recognition, Bonjour Gateway, DPSK, guest access services, hotspot services, radio control, whips. If you don't turn off whips, it gets really kind of full really fast because it's like, hey, there's all these other APs that aren't mine. URL filtering, you need a license to do URL filtering, and then you can set up Wi-Fi calling. And then here, the one thing I will show here is you can actually do an online upgrade to look for the new firmware. And so we can actually do a check for updates. Check for updates. Now it's loading. Oh, I'm up to date. So there we go. I don't have to, but if it wasn't, I can do the upgrade right here. You don't have to go log in and download and do all that other stuff. It will do it online. So now what I want to do is we're going to see if I can share my there we go. We're going to share my phone. Yep. I see it on Twitch, so I'm going to go. Now, what? Oh, here it is. So I'm going to connect to my. Oh no.
Uh-oh.
No, I forgot. I was going to.
Forgot your password?
Well, I was going to put in the admin password, but for this, I need the password for the SSID, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now I'm connected to that. And Jamal, I'll get to your question here in a second. So I'm connected to the Ruckus live stream. So now I'm going to come over here and I have the app I told you about. So I'm going to click on the app. And because I'm connected to the SSID, and there are other ways you can do this remotely. I don't want to get into that. I just want to show off the app real quick. So this password is going to be Ruckus 1, 2, 3. Done. Unleashed. And now we're unleashing on my mobile app. This is free. And so if you're running it at your house, and this is kind of nice because you can be sitting there on the couch watching TV, watching holiday movies, Christmas vacation, what have you. We're unleashing still. And they go, hey, it's down, the Wi-Fi's down, or it's not working, it's slow. You don't have to get up off of your couch to go figure this out. You can look at it from your phone, which, yeah. So it's still the same thing. Here we go. Get rid of the. But all right, I don't want to spend too much time on that well,
again, we could do a whole stream just on that.
Yeah. So we'll see. All right, the other thing, but real quick. before we move on. So I have my lights. The two solid lights tell me everything's good. That is if I have a mesh, if I'm doing a wireless mesh and it's talking over that, then that light will come on. The orange light tells me the radio's on, but nothing's connected. And the green light tells me the radio's on and a device is connected. So for this particular one, I'm connected at 5 gig. Yay! So we got that going. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my little handy dandy that I think I dropped. So I'm going to grab my other reset pin. On this AP, there's the USB. This R550 has IoT inside, but if you needed to add in a different IoT radio, you could plug that in here. But I also have a little reset button, and it says it right up here, and that's the little pinhole right there. So I'm going to try to hold this up to where you can see the lights. And I'm going to press and hold the reset button. We're going to hold it. Oh, okay. So now I got the red flashing light, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of see that. Yep. Yeah, so that tells me it's now being reset. So I let go. It goes to red. Now I just let it sit and wait.
While you're waiting.
So the master, which one of the APs will be a master? You can pick that. You can go in and you can say, hey, this is the AP that I want to be the master. So if I were to grab one of my R850s that's up there, if I were to grab one of those and put it on the Unleashed, and I have to load Unleashed firmware on all the APs first. Yeah. But once you do that, once you define the master and go, hey, you can call it that in the name. You can be like, hey, this is going to be my Unleashed master or my network master, whatever. You can go into and you can define that in the dedicated master section. And you can say, this AP is going to be my dedicated. And then you can also set a redundant one. And if you're running a network that has more than about 20 to 30 APs, you should probably think about dedicating a master. If not, what you can do is you can actually define and you can say, hey, this is going to be my primary controller. But if that if that AP goes offline for any reason, and you haven't defined a different, a hierarchy in the controllers, then another AP will automatically assume control. So it'll still work. And there is a way you can dedicate a controller IP address. So if your AP goes down and you're used to getting to it via an IP, it's the same IP address will get you to whatever AP is acting as the master. Okay, so my AP is now back to so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to share my entire screen, and we're going to go a little funky here for a second. Boom. So let's come up here. We're now going to close this because now remember, I hit the reset button. So now we're going to go to my IP address, 2.195. Oh, there we go. Let's see. It might still be rebuilding the GUI. So nope. All right. So I hit the reset button from Unleashed, and now we're back to the Unleashed installation and that first initial wizard that we got to. But what I'm going to do this time, and we see 200.14, I'm now going to do a local upgrade. I'm going to choose my file right there. Ah, look. John wasn't lying. So these are all of my AP firmware. These are all the different AP models. So I come in and I'll pick the R550. Now remember, I want to go back to that. In this case, we're going to go to 118. 114 is what shipped. And so that's what I had downloaded, in the past. And then the other day when we discovered that 118 posted, I went ahead and downloaded that because, I was there. So now I'm going to pick that. And it always ends in BL7. That's what you're looking for. So I got a 118, which is a standalone, BL7. I'm going to open that, and now it's going to do a local upgrade, which is actually a downgrade from Unleashed to standalone. Yeah, it's going to reboot. That's fine. That's what we want. So, you don't. So, yes, Jermon, you need to have. You have to put the Unleashed firmware on all of the APs. There was a presentation done at WLPC in February of this year by Matt Hall, and he was talking about the New Zealand school district. And one of the things he didn't get a chance to talk about is he built a tool that runs on a Raspberry Pi that will put firmware on your switches. And one of the things we're working on is coming up with the ability, and you can use Crossbreeder for this too. You can actually, basically get the APs online, and you can use Crossbreeder to push the firmware to all of the APs. And like I said, one of the things Matt and I are working on we're trying to get that thing all merged together to where we could push firmware upgrade automatically to the APs as they come online. And hopefully they're going to ask for firmware when they boot up. So yeah, but you do have to have the 200. In this case, it'd been 200.14 code on the AP. But if it has like 213 or 212, it will auto upgrade. But it has to have that Unleashed running on the AP in order to get it to auto join. So now we're upgrading / downgrading to standalone, and this part of the process takes the longest because you're going from you're going into a controller, and now you're backing out of the controller, going to the 114 code. So yeah, so that we've now covered standalone and what was the other? Oh, standalone and Unleashed. So while that's doing its thing, I'm going to get back here on my phone because now my network's gone that I just connected to. And we are going to connect to my home. Yep, I'm on my home network. So that is now working because the next one we're going to cover is Ruckus 1.
Which, for those of you who've been paying attention to Ruckus for more than the last 10 or so months, is the former Ruckus Cloud.
Yes. So, now I'll talk about it before we get to it so that we can go a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I was gonna say this for when I started. Again 3 years ago, when I finally got my hands on my first Ruckus APs, I didn't have the Nook for the controller yet, and I didn't have a reason to touch standalone or Unleashed. And Ruckus Cloud was the first. Well, Ruckus Cloud at the time was my first kind of way to get my controller or my APs rather up and running. So, and it hasn't gotten any harder.
Yeah. So while my AP is upgrading back to standalone because I need it on standalone to get it to join Ruckus Cloud, or Ruckus 1 to the cloud. That is Ruckus 1. Maybe that's another better way of saying it. So I'm over here on my Ruckus 1 account. So we're going to log in on this guy real quick, and there's a technical error because of course it's a technical error logging in because it's a live stream. Yeah. Okay. So here's the new Ruckus 1. For those who were worried about it, with going with a subscription cloud-based type of controller, and you're always worried about, they're going to do things that I don't want them to do. There is, like this one is telling me that, hey, there is an upgrade scheduled for the new firmware version because it's available. And so I can click on this and I can go in and I can say, hey, this is the AP firmware. And I can, it tells me the latest versions, switch firmwares, stuff like that. And I can actually, schedule it. I can defer it. I can be like, hey, for this demo right here, I want to skip this update. I don't want to do it now. But you can change the update schedule. And it'll always respect the local time zone for where the venue is. So depending on which one you're doing, you can schedule that. You can skip it. You can do it now. You have all these different options up here of picking when do I want to do that. So, and again, you can do the AP firmware. You can also do switch firmware from the same tab or same window, I guess. So yeah, you can see it's a couple different current firmwares for my different venues that I've built and stuff like that. And so what we want to do is we're going to come over here to the venues because now my AP is ready to go. So come into the venue. We're going to pick my cloud demo venue right there. And I can take a look at what's going on. And I can see all that stuff. Now, if I want to add a switch or if I want to add an AP, I can come down here to either Wi-Fi or wired, depending on which hardware I'm looking at. And I can go to my AP list. This is the one way of doing it. And what I want to do is I want to add. I'm going to add an AP. Now I pick which venue I want to add it to. So this would be like a branch office or whatever. And so we're going to add it to my cloud demo. Right there. I don't have an AP group built because, well, I do. I have a monitor, so I can set them in monitor mode. Be like, hey, I just want you to monitor. This one we're going to call this the live stream AP. Now, the last thing I need to do is I need to get the serial number. And I'm going to add the second one, maybe, here in a second. But let's get the serial number here. Oh, it's terrible getting old, John.
Yeah. They don't make the serial number very easy to read.
Well, there's another way I'll show you here in a second.
I was going to say, if it involves taking a picture and zooming in on it, been there, done that.
No. 3196. So that's one way. So this is one way of doing it. I'm actually gonna make this a little bit quicker. So I'm gonna set my AP right here on the ground in front of me. And I'm going to actually cancel this one because I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch over and I am going to share my phone again. I'm going to come here to my app right here. So this is the Ruckus One, Ruckus Cloud app on my iPhone. And down here in the bottom right, you see that plus sign, right? The orange plus sign in that circle. I'm going to click that and it's going to let me add Ruckus One. Yeah, you do need a paid subscription. This is this is a subscription based, just like any other subscription. So this one you have to have all the paid stuff. But what I want to do is I want to add an AP. It's right there in the middle, right? So we're going to click an AP. My session expired. So now I have to sign back in again.
Now, does the app make the nice singing noises?
No, you got to pay me extra. Hey, isn't there some service where like people can pay me to do, and I'll like record some of my noises for them? It's like when I'm bow.
I mean, you could. There's stuff you could do for that, but I don't think we want to get into that on this.
No. So okay, so we missed it because you were talking. So we're going to add an AP. We're going to come down here. We're going to add an AP. I'm going to pick my venue that I wanted in, and I can pick.
I saw the scan serial number. I got excited.
Well, we had to back up because
Mm.
well, I didn't cover it. So now we're going to do so now I'm going to pick there. And now I have the ability, I can either enter the serial number, just like I did on the web, or I can scan the serial number and I can come down here and I can go, hey, there's my serial number right there. It pulls it in. We're going to add an AP name real quick. We're going to put it as a production AP and we're going to go next and we're going to create that AP. So now it's added the AP that's test.
That's pretty slick.
There it is. So now it's telling me that the AP was added and I can place it on a floor plan. If I had a floor plan, but I don't know if I've done that or not. But I now have two APs. Now what happens is when you claim the AP serial number on your subscription for Ruckus One, when you claim it on that platform, the AP is calling out to a URL. Let's see. So now it's blinking. If you can see it, my control light is blinking really. It's quicker, right?
Yep.
So what that's telling me is it's actually now talking to the cloud. So we'll drop that down there. And so what happens is as soon as I claim that AP on my controller, it then registers it. And now I can see that and this takes a second to update on the app. Whereas if I were to switch back over, see if I can make a liar out of myself. And let's go back over and look at my laptop screen. Ooh. We'll come here. Okay, so let's refresh this. Right there. It says it's never contacted the cloud. Still. Oh, it had to reboot. So what the AP did is it actually did contact the cloud. It downloaded the new firmware that it needed to operate on the subscription on that cloud platform that is Ruckus One. So it basically had to pull down new firmware, and so it's doing that, and now it's rebooting. So it was red. Now it's in a boot up mode. So it's a slow blinking control light. That tells me that it's booting up, and then now that it has the firmware, once it comes back up, it's going to download a configuration that was already inherent in that venue. So, because I have it on my venue, here's my cloud demo venue, and like I said, you can see my Ruckus One R610 that is operational. I get the model number. We get a different IP address. Whether it's a mesh role, if I have this switch loaded on Ruckus One, then it'll actually give me the switch information that AP is plugged into here. And again, there's a lot of other stuff that I can go in and we can do in there. But again, this is just sort of running through. So now if we take a look at the screen, my test AP that I just added is initializing. So that tells me that it's contacted the cloud. It's now talking to it. It's fun and happy. And so now we just have to wait for it to pull the configuration because the firmware is done. Now it's pulling some more. So now it's applying the configuration. So now we know that it's talking, it's happy. And now we just have to tell people to hold their horses and wait 2 seconds or 2 minutes. And we'll actually see that switch from, applying configuration to operational. So again, it's one of those things where, it doesn't seem like a long time when you're like, oh, you just have to wait 2 minutes. But then when you're sitting here on a live stream going, we have to fill 2 minutes of time. Well,
Well, it's always worse to be watched when you're on stage, right?
yeah, and so and again, when we talk about like how tough it is to do some of this stuff, it's really not that hard. It just takes time because of all the firmware configurations. And if you're now when we're talking to the internet, we're talking to cloud-based stuff. So now we're applying some new firmware that just switched, so we can see that now. Um, it's from a difficulty perspective of actually doing it. I mean, you saw how hard it was, right? I used the app on my phone. I scanned it. I'm pretty sure. Well, while we're waiting for that to do its thing, so if we wanted to come over here and add, so we could import APs. So we can actually get a CSV of all the APs we want to claim, up to 512. And you download the CSV template. You'd copy in your name and serial number and what other parameters you wanted to apply to it, and then you drag and drop it back into this window here, or you can browse and click upload, and you will get all of you can import it, the whole thing that way, so that all you have to do is basically plug them in. As long as your installers get the AP in the at the dot in the map where you say I want this AP to be, then you're done. All you have to do is you go to bed, you let the installers do their work overnight or whatever, and when you wake up in the morning, it's all working, it's all done. So it's the only thing that's hard is just the waiting. It's the time to get APs, time to get the licensing, time to get it's all the other stuff that we hate that is the difficulty. It's not the actual like our work. Our work is simple.
So one question came in from the YouTube folks, Jim, and I don't think I've ever noticed. There's no dark mode for either one of the app or the AP UI, is there?
I'm guessing not. Huh. I I have so many other things that don't have it that I just, but no, I don't know if there is. What do we? Oh, there's a help menu here. How-to videos, help for this page, contact support, supported device models, firewall ACL inputs. You can open a case. Let's see. What else do we have? Activities. Oh, we added an AP. Have no alarms right now. No. We should ask Dave and Sarb about that.
Yeah, we can. Although I kind of feel like, I don't know, dark mode was such a big thing a few years ago, and I feel like it kind of petered out a little bit, but I still like my dark mode. So we will ask.
Yeah, we'll ask.
We'll
I don't know.
We'll make them watch this because this wasn't even us thinking of it. This was someone on the YouTube stream. It was Adolf Sabay. Sorry if I butchered that, but he asked, so I asked, so we'll ask.
Okay. So,
worst case, we get told no.
Here we go. It's even though the web UI says it's still applying the configuration. I don't know if you can see that, but I now have 4 lights. I have the 2 ambers and the 2 greens. So now, if we stop sharing that and we share, let's share this right here. Ooh, I forgot the password to that SSID. Oops. Oh well. But yeah, here's the app. Oh, I guess if I actually clicked share, you could see the app. Whoops. So now I have 2 APs. I have no switches. I have 4 networks. Oh, I was going to connect a device to it. Anyway, there's a whole. There's a menu. You can look at dashboards, venues, network devices, networks, clients, stuff like that. Guest pass credentials, DPSK passphrases, Wi-Fi, no switches. I could add a switch. I'll get around to doing that one day, but I need new firewall rules. So yeah, here's that's that's the Ruckus One platform, and we have I can see it on my app, and I'm not even connected to the SSID. If I was, then we could see the clients or the switch, the Wi-Fi clients or the switch clients. We can see that there beneath the four main tiles at the top, kind of right there in the middle before the networks. But then we can actually take a look at the network, and I can see how many venues I've applied that SSID to, how many APs are running it, and how many clients I have connected right there. And if my device were to be connected, then I would see that down here, my device connection, and then if I was actually using it. But so yeah. So now comes the hard part, John. This is the part that I've been worried about ever since I came up with this idea. This is the hard part. Can you guess what that is?
I can't.
I have to get my AP off of Ruckus One. It's hard. It's actually really hard.
It is kind of sticky, yeah.
Well, because it's one of those things where it just wants to run, right? It's going to do everything possible to run. So I have to do a couple of things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my MikroTik. Should we show that?
Sure. If you want.
Oh, here, let's share.
Could happen, right? We'll just break it.
So we're going to share this screen over here. So this is my lab MikroTik, which is different from my home firewall. So I have two different firewalls on here. This one's running Router OS version 6.49. There's a version 7, which we should play with. Here's my DHCP servers. If you take a look at my networks, I have a bunch of different VLANs. We can see all that. But what I want to do is I want to come in here to my firewall, and I have a bunch of firewall rules that I use to try to make all this stuff work. And so what I want to do is I want to add a new firewall, and I'm going to enable that rule. Chain is, let's see, I want to forward any input from 195. Where's the drop? I want to drop all traffic that's coming from my AP on this subnet. So it's going to be from there. It's going to hit the interface. So it's going to be on all interface lists. We're going to apply that. Okay, we're going to come in here. Now this is a first in, first out. So I have to take this rule and I got to drag it up to the top of let me drag this one down okay. No. Nah, come on.
This is what happens with live demos.
All right. So I'm actually going to put that right ahead because these are comments right here. So this keeps me ordered. And so I'm going to put that. So this is going to drop. Rule number 28 is going to drop all packets coming from my AP. So that is now we dropped it. So we're going to stop sharing this screen right there. I'm going to switch back over. I'm going to share. I'm going to go back into an Inception mode. We're going to share this screen right here. Let's come down to this guy. I'm going to take my AP and I want to delete it. Yes, I want to delete. Oh, this is new.
What's that? Oh yeah.
This is new. I haven't seen this. This is cool. Now I'm learning. This is a problem. This is a big problem now that I'm learning. I can factory reset the standalone firmware.
Somebody was listening to you, Jim.
Wow. Well, I already put in my firewall rule, so it's now I can't do that. So I'm just going to delete it, and then we'll go through the normal mode that I have done it in the past. So, yeah. So it's now deleted. So now what that means is that if my AP were to talk to the cloud or be able to talk out to the internet, to any cloud, it's not going to automatically pull that stuff. But because I've isolated it, I now have to. So now we're off the cloud, but I'm going to do this. It still's like, hey, screw you, I'm still talking. So I'm going to hit my reset button again. Get the nice glare out of there. Can you see that it's... Maybe. There we go. So now I got my red light. Yeah, it is unhappy, which is good. Somebody's watching us on an 85-inch screen.
Yeah, I feel bad for them because that's probably going to be the worst image they're ever going to see on that.
Look, you can't. You've met us. You knew what you were getting into on an 85-inch screen when you logged into this. So, I
appreciate the dedication.
I appreciate that, but you know what? You're not getting anything for it special. I think it's bad on my 11-inch iPad. So, all right. So now I'm reset, and my controller light is flashing right there. So now I'm going to go double check it on my same IP address. So let's share this screen back. We'll share the entire screen. We'll go back to here. Swing up to there. We'll come back to here. Let's refresh this, see if it's working. Now, this happens every once in a while. And what I found is that if I change a browser, or you have to clear the cache. Mm-hmm. Then it doesn't like the credentials. So if you're using the default credentials on the back of the AP and it's like, hey, it's not the right credentials or whatever, you don't necessarily have to leave it at that. You can, if you just switch browsers real quick. So now I switched from Firefox to Safari. Now it's working. So now that we're in. Now this looks a lot like standalone, right? But what you'll notice is over here on the left-hand side, we have a little bit of, we don't have as many menu options over here. And if we look at the software version, it's 6.2.3. Now, that is the one of the latest Ruckus 1 firmwares is 6.2.3. So that tells me that this used to be on Ruckus 1. And because it's not anymore, it's not connected, we get that warning that says this AP is currently unable to provide wireless access. So again, so this goes back to the question that Drummond asked like an hour ago or whatever. When we do set these, when we hit the reset button, we kind of get back to this standalone looking thing, but because the software version is telling us it's 6.2.3, that tells us that it used to be on a Ruckus controller. That was either, and in this case, this is going to be Ruckus 1. Smart Zone isn't there yet, isn't at 6.2.3, and I don't think they're going to end up with a 6.2.3. Trey, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know right now we don't have a 6.2.3 for Smart Zone, so this was a Ruckus 1. But what I want to do is I want to come over here to my upgrade. I'm going to do a local upgrade. We're going to choose my firmware. We don't want a T350C. We want an R550. We want to go back to 118. We're going to upload that. Again, extensions supported, the wildcard.bl7. So that's what we have. So now we're going to do a firmware upgrade. And what we're doing is we're actually downgrading from cloud, the Ruckus 1 cloud-based subscription model firmware to the standalone. And then once we're on standalone, then I'm going to switch VLANs on my I have a little switch that is right there, right next to my WLAN Pi. I'm going to actually just change ports on that switch, and we will get that thing running on Smart Zone, and we'll be done. Yeah, if you guys get an R770, I'm reading the comments on Twitch.
I saw it. I was laughing inside my head.
If you guys get an R770, then I want one too, because guess what? I don't have one.
I've had one though.
I did, briefly. But yeah, for like a week, and
then I made the mistake of actually shipping it back. Mine don't arrive until I had to double check. I looked the other day. February 29th is my scheduled arrival date.
Yeah, so people who think that like employees get, we actually don't get first dibs at new gear. It's just the customers.
No. So let's be fair. You don't, because I don't know why they don't like you. I don't, because my accounts never get access to the good stuff first, because my vertical tends to really find all of the issues and really beat them up, because they've got some really good QA teams. So
and to be fair, your customers are not, they're more risk averse, and so bleeding edge is not where they like.
That's the thing, right? They need my vertical needs it sooner just to start the test process, because they put it through like a 6-month process. It'll take my customer probably the better part of a year to adopt a new AP and get it ready for production deployment. And the one example I'm thinking of. So for our side wants to know, customer's going to test it, they're going to like it really fast, and they're going to buy a whole bunch of them. I get it. I don't have any problems with that. I don't have mine yet. But funny story though, my customer does actually have an R770. They got it about a month ago. So mine are a couple months behind them. No shock there. I was actually hoping to have mine before WLPC, because maybe I'd bring one for the RCWA class. I'll probably call Tofu and see if I can't borrow one, but unless somebody gets some shipping done quicker, I probably won't have mine until after Phoenix. And Martin, I won't take it personally that you're not coming to my deep dive. It's okay. I would go to Peter's Spec and one too. Actually.
After seeing that thing after seeing that thing in Prague, I'd go to it too. That's
you and I have talked about this, and we did this when we did the hype videos and talking about it. Like, I'm a gear dork. I want to know what I'm getting out of my deep dives, which is why I did the video, and hopefully anybody on our stream actually saw my video, which was embarrassingly bad. But I want to know what I'm getting out of it. I don't want to go to a deep dive and get a book. like, no offense to the book author, I'm sure it took a lot of writing, but I want to get something that I can play with. I want to get a toy. I want to get something new. Like, I liked the WLAN Pi. I liked getting um, the RF, the thing from Great Scott. That was before you went. I
No, the
like
Hack
getting the
RF.
Yes, thank you. I like getting the toys, admittedly, that I don't use after the fact too much. But if Peters is giving, I don't know if he's giving an Aronia to everybody or if there's a chance for people to get one. That tool looks pretty neat. I saw some of the stuff coming out of Prague, so I don't blame anybody for picking. First of all, Peter, right? I mean, he's
Yeah.
analysis like royalty in the Wi-Fi space, so I don't blame anybody for that at all. Um, so yeah, I don't blame any for that. And
Yeah.
Gearman, I'm gonna put if my deep dive doesn't crash and burn in Phoenix, I'm going to try and run it again in Prague for 2024. We tried, it didn't make it this past year, but we'll try again. We'll see what happens. Which I guess I just put myself live on the hook for submitting for Prague, which is kind of scary. But hey,
Look, the first time I'm teaching a deep dive is the worst, and after that it just gets easier. So just trust me on that one. Okay, so to wrap this thing up, we're now back to something that looks very similar that we had before, but now if you look at the software version, we're 118.2. So this is the standalone. So there's so now we have a little bit more items over here, but again, it looks the same. And this will be the same thing when after this is done and I reset it back to standalone after I get done with the smart zone and I have to isolate it again. I have to put it back into a subnet that has a firewall rule that says, hey, Mr. AP, you don't get to talk to nobody. That's how I'm going to have to do this to do the upgrade again. I love the fact that Ruckus One now lets me do it from my browser. That is awesome. So thank you, Dave and Sarab, for doing that for me. That's awesome. But now that we're on this now we're going to go to Smart Zone, right? There's two ways, or actually there's several ways you can do this of doing the Smart Zone discovery. But because I'm in this screen, I'm going to start with this one. And we're going to click on Management. And what I can do is I can come down here to this set controller address right here. And so if I enable it, I can enter an IP address for my controller if I wanted to. Now, the problem with that is to do it for every single one, ginormous pain. Luckily, you don't have to. Would be for, if you have one AP, you're trying to do something special with it, something different. And you can type in a public IP address if you wanted to like point it to virtual smart zone running in the cloud, in a private cloud, like a Google or Amazon cloud. You could point it to that, and you could do it that way too, which I do when I'm playing around with my R560, talking to a QA controller that lives in Google Cloud. So you can do it that way, but the easiest way is it does use option 43. So DHCP option 43 is I actually have that running on my primary network. So I'm going to come in. Actually, we can do it. We're going to change tabs here. We're going to come back to here. We're going to take a look at my virtual smart zone running at my house. I want to take a look at my switches. I want to look at my office switch. I'm going to look at the port, and I want to try to find, I'm going to take my Ruckus AP, I'm going to move it from port 5 to port 6. So give me just a second. All right, I am now plugged into port 6, which is going to put me, which I'm switching VLANs from my lab VLAN onto my production VLAN because that's where I have DHCP option 43 running. And so what will happen is it's going to, as it powers up, it's going to send out a DHCP message, DHCP discovery, and it's going to ask for controller IP addresses, and it's going to send the IP address of the controller of my virtual smart zone to the AP, and then we should see the AP show up here in several minutes under my access points right here. So I have 4 right now, and we should see a 5th one before too long. But that's it. That's how you do it. You just basically, if you're running a virtual smart zone on your network, and DHCP option 43 is the way to go, and it will come in. I actually have some. Let's see. Let's come here
I
to
feel like
8.
you're picking on me by rubbing in the option 43.
Oh, so I had to figure out how to do option 43 for my IoT controller. And so that's DHCP option 43 sub option 21. And you have to add, so you have to convert it into hex, right? And then you have to add this string that's like this long. It's a huge hex string. And I have to get it added. But but for my network, I actually have AP registration rules on my controller that says, hey, if an AP comes online and it has to be in one of these IP subnets in order to get onto my network. So I had to set up DHCP reservations. So I have that set up too. So it's like, hey, I can run, because each one of these will run different firmware. So I have the different zones, and so that's running in here. You can also have the approval to where you can automatically approve all join requests from APs, or you can turn that off and you manually have to go in and approve it. But
Just leave it auto.
yeah, but for this one, I found, if even with this setup with the approval set up to be on, where it automatically approves all the join requests, the AP registration rules still take into effect. So if I just take an AP and I plug it into my production network, if it doesn't fall within these, IP address ranges, it doesn't work. And then so then you can set it and say, hey, this is the zone I want to drop it in. So I had to go in, and I did set up that earlier because that's just my wonky configuration. So let's come down.
And you're getting teased to upgrade to 6.1.2.
Who said that?
Mafa Wi-Fi on Twitch. He's not wrong. I mean, 612 is our new golden.
It is.
Not golden config, but it is our Great Dane. He's not wrong, but that did just come out. I think about a month ago, give or take. I just upgraded my house to it a couple weeks back.
I've been on vacation.
Yeah, he's still technically on vacation today. That's how much he loves. I'm not sure if he loves me, the show, or you, the audience. Probably not me or the show. But anyways, there were two questions. One I want to get to. I know the answer because I live in the controller world. So when an AP is managed by the controller, you cannot directly attach to the AP IP address. You'll get an error. So I don't know if you want to show them that. Not an error really, but a message that says you can't do this. It's managed by a Ruckus controller. I assume it's similar behavior for R1 and Unleashed, but I have never actually tried either one.
So we didn't check it on Ruckus 1, but I know in the past, if you have the credentials for your smart zone, I have been able to log into it locally, and you get that sort of standalone view, but you can't do anything. But
And full like extra super bonus, it can be done, but you as a customer cannot do it. So there is special like above admin level access that the Bulldog or Watchdog support people can do,
yeah,
but the customer will never get that access. That
no,
is super top level.
it's
I don't
it's
even I it's above and beyond my pay grade as well. So yeah, no. But from a general AP perspective, once it's managed by a controller, it's managed by a controller, and it'll tell you with like you'll log into that GUI and it'll say this AP is managed by a Ruckus controller, and you can't do anything. And then the other question, I don't know if you had anything to add to that. Gearman was asking again, what's the difference between the management and control port when you're setting up a VSC? So officially, you've got 3 or 1.
yes.
I'm doing my finger gestures below the camera. You've got 3 interfaces or 1 interface. If you're doing a controller in the cloud, i.e. AWS or GCE or something like that, I think GCE might officially support multiple NICs now. It didn't for a while. I don't know about AWS anymore, but typically those deployments are single NIC, so all of them are on one data plane, if you will. call it that, one interface. I do my house that way because my customers like that. But the general rule was to have certain traffic broken out for security reasons. And I'm sure I think there's a document we have that says like what traffic goes over which one.
Yeah, but that's the different interfaces is basically to break up the different control planes or the
I mean,
different planes you have.
it was literally, I believe, a security requirement.
Yeah. So our AP in question right here, you can see the AP firmware was 118.2, and it's downloading the firmware. So that's just, you have to scroll to the right, but it's there. And you can see all the status. So the other ones are up to date. So my AP is rebooted. I now have a red light on it down there. And so this will stay in a downloading firmware state until the AP comes back up after the reboot. And then we'll see an updating configuration status message. And then at that point, once it's up to date, it's up to date. So that's basically it. I mean, it's back to the waiting mode of, hey, we got to download the firmware. It's got to apply it. It's got to then reboot and do all of this stuff. And that's why I said, we talk about all the time how easy it is to switch between all of them. And even explaining it, and we started 20 minutes. So we're now theory about an hour and 20 minutes of even just going through and explaining all the different, the apps and showing people things and doing things. I mean, it's literally taken me an hour and 20 minutes, and you guys watched me do it live, of my involvement and what I had to do in order to switch between the 4 platforms and do all that stuff. So, I mean, it's when Ruckus says that it's basically, how do you want it to work? It's really that simple. It's that easy. I mean, I said I have DHCP option 43 set up for my home network, but that's all I had to do to get it to work on there. Or you type in the IP address on your AP. And Crossbreeder will also do that. So Crossbreeder will say, oh, all your APs are talking to this. Let me send the controller IP address to Crossbreeder will send the controller IP address to all of your APs and say, this is now who you're going to talk to is the smart zone that you're running. So you're going to talk to this, or you're going to talk to who. So there's these different little tools that, we have that are either from Ruckus or from Ruckus employees are like, hey, I just want to make my life easier. So, that's how the hardest part in doing all of this stuff is just the waiting so even though here, you know what? I forgot. Let's refresh. This won't refresh on its own. I'll come over here. There we go. So my AP right here. This is my Ruckus AP.
This whole upgrade process, Jim, was you didn't swear at all.
Yeah.
And no hammers were broken out. No APs were destroyed. And I didn't pull any of my hair out.
And the other thing is, I didn't have to. I could have TFTP'd firmware if I really wanted to, but like I said, the only thing I downloaded is the standalone firmware and the Unleashed firmware, and then I just did local upgrades because, quite frankly, I'm not smart enough to do all the TFTP stuff. So yeah, so here.
Well, I mean, and in fairness, though, I mean, if you're doing, like you said, you're going to want to pre-download anything anyways, just because, I mean, that's the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Internet goes down or it's slow or you're at a location that has horrible backhaul or whatever. You're going to want to make sure you've got it, already downloaded to your device and just make it easier. So, yeah, and full disclosure, yeah, we did a very brief dry run of some of this yesterday. Not even a dry run because we weren't on Riverside yesterday. And Jim downloaded the code, and that's actually when he found out there was new standalone code. It came out about, I want to say about 2 weeks ago. I think it was on the 12th.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It doesn't take much. I think you've refined it a few times. I think there were a couple of days where, you were ready to punt an AP because it was giving you a hard time. But you've kind of refined the process to where, in basically an hour.
I mean, really, the dry run was more of a video and firmware of saying, hey, I'm going to use my phone, I'm going to use my second laptop, and I'm going to use my primary laptop to do all this stuff. But this is just how many times I move my APs around and how easy it is. So that's where I've refined it, is doing that stuff. And generally speaking, when I've had problems, half the time it's been cable problems where I'm like, oh, I have a bad cable. So yeah, I asked Santa for some new copper jumpers, and Santa laughed and said, "You don't get copper jumpers." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. I can get a snowblower. I can get all headphone. No, I need some new Ethernet jumpers." But yeah, that's it. That's all it took. No, I like yeah, hour hour and 20 minutes to do it and explain it, and now it's done.
Feels pretty good.
Yeah, and
And the stream didn't crash. We had a technical glitch right before we went live, which is why we were going and mucking around before we went live.
oh, so Jermon asked about. He's like, "What the heck is happening in your house with 30% airtime utilization?" All right, so let's go find it. Where
I was gonna say better you than me because I live in New York City, so yeah.
So we'll take a look. So here's the problem, right? Is I live in a very residential house. So I have a bunch of neighbors, and they've all gotten to the point now, and it's a newer house.
I was gonna say, here's my hold my beer moment because
well, so
it's bad.
Well, so the reason why when you look at these airtime utilization, but that's channel 149. So I have to keep one of my APs on Uni 1 or Uni 3 because I do have some devices that get cranky if they can't find a Uni 1 or a Uni 3 and they end up on 2.4, and we all know about 2.4. So yes. So the latency and the airtime utilization on channel 149 is really big because it's like there's literally like 20 something networks that I can see from my house in my surrounding neighborhood. So that's why that one's so high. But if you take a look at my other ones, they're on 136 and 64, your airtime utilization. So yeah, that's people complain about residential Wi-Fi all the time. And quite frankly, it's just simply because when you get into neighborhoods like John and I's, and I'll stop sharing here. And I will share from my laptop that can talk to my WLAN Pi. We will share here. When we take a look at this, this is, people are like, so I have these old retired couple that live right behind this wall, right? They're literally like, let's see, 30 feet behind this wall behind me, right? They were complaining to me one day that their internet was so terrible. Their internet was terrible. Internet was terrible. They're like, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. They're like, we're paying. They were paying for the highest tier service. And it's this old retired couple. And I'm like, what are you doing online? And they're like, oh, we're doing, they're like, it's like we search email and then we stream every once in a while. And I'm like, you can do that on 100 megabits per second. And they were paying for like a gig service. And what I found out was they're running here. Let me exclude Ruckus. They're running right in here. So this is why channel 149 has 37% utilization, airtime utilization, is because this is the rest of my neighborhood right here. And for
one of the reasons why I've had friends and family ask, "Oh, how can they fix it? Oh, come over and fix it." I'm like, download Adrian's tools, pay the money.
Yes.
And you'll be able to figure out where to put your stuff, because stop doing auto channels, because all the major service providers, they just default to the, whatever 1611, 49, whatever it is. And it's just, I get to use 80 wide where I'm at because, some of my neighbors are getting a little bit smarter to it, but for a while they didn't know or have the ability to do it. So,
well, if you look right, this is so people around me who aren't running Ruckus, because I have a bunch of Ruckus gear, so all my friends get Ruckus, the neighbors that I like, right? This is what residential Wi-Fi looks like in suburbia USA. This is what it looks like. So when people complain, and so it's like, yeah, your problem is here. Let's open this up right here. We take a look at channel 157 has 34 networks on it.
No, too many networks, too strong of a signal.
Yeah, I mean, look at 1, 6, and 11. I mean, it's a
Well,
freaking disaster.
it blows the average person's mind when you sit there and say, like, when you go into, and I'm going to pick on Netgear, when you go into their settings, and I remember from back when I was completely clueless, it basically had the GUI that said like good, better, best, and best was like 80 wide, full power, and I'm like, that's horrible. But the average consumer thinks you crank it up to 11, and that's good for Wi-Fi, and it's not.
Yet,
And sometimes it can be really, really bad.
yeah.
So,
The other thing is I could fix my neighborhood Wi-Fi because nobody needs 80. You don't need 80.
don't touch my 80, man.
Well, so here's
No, you don't need
so
it, but it's one of those. I mean, it goes back to you use the channel width that you can get away with.
well the problem is everybody else is using 80. So it's just all defaults. But if you know I have one AP that's here that gets my Uni 1, Uni 3, and that's my upstairs R350. But if you notice, all the rest of my Ruckus gear is all running in Uni 2. And then even so, my neighbors, that's Ma and Pop, Ma and Pap next door new. That's their new SSID. They're as soon as I put this one in, they were like, our Wi-Fi, they're like, our internet's awesome. And I'm like, downgrade. And so they ended up like cutting their bill by like 70%. And they're like, this is awesome. And we're saving a whole bunch of money. But it's all because
you gave me your bill for it, and it was like, oh my god.
Yeah, I love they're like I said, old retired couple. I love them. So yeah, they got the no bill. But yeah, so this is why residential Wi-Fi, if they would if they would allow them to switch, if we could run 40s and switch, turn the power down just a little bit, run 40s and let them use Uni 2, it'd fix residential Wi-Fi. But the problem is then people wouldn't pay the ISPs their boatload of money to.
But it's also it's we're going to blame marketing. It's the same problem we have.
It's a
with
huge
Wi-Fi
problem. Yeah.
professionals, right?
Yeah.
But it is, right? So they come out and they want to take it out of the box to be the quote unquote optimal. And see, I did this right. The camera's right there. Optimal speeds for best performance, or whatever you want to call it. Because they know if I do 20 wide, I'm never going to get gig speeds. If I do 40, like there's a certain cap. The MCS rates come into play, which you and I can get, but the average Joe user doesn't have a clue about. They want to get like gigabit speeds. Well, you can't get that if you're not running 80 wide.
Yeah.
You can't get top speeds, and you can't get the bill. And the reality is, for anybody who's listening who's just Joe user, you don't need those speeds. You need consistency in wireless, not max speeds. This is not, sealed drag racing a bus thing, right? So people think they want the hot speeds and it's got to be blazing fast. And the reality is, until we get into the AR VR stuff that's going to be using Wi-Fi, no. Mm-mm.
But it's all about this max rate. That's what they're looking for. Is they want this max rate, and so that's it. So that's the 37%. So I think that's it, John.
Their iPhone and iPad can never hit that max rate, anyways. But hey,
But that's why it's.
We don't want to piss off the marketing people.
Yeah, but that's where it comes from.
That was fun. We're coming up on almost 2 hours from the time we started, but it's almost 2 hours.
So Jermon, the neighbors doing WPA3 and .1x, that's all the SSIDs from like Xfinity here in the US advertises like millions and millions of hotspots. And that's what they've done. And what I've noticed is I found out my neighbor across the street. Here, let me reshare again. He was bragging. This came up in Prague about my neighbor and his Galaxy Fold 4 because he was all happy that he was able to do 6 gigahertz. And so we were talking about that. And what I found out was this Vantiva USA. That is what, and so if you look, it's Xfinity Wi-Fi. So that's what you're seeing with the WPA3 is they upgraded, all of my neighbors upgraded because I could see my neighbor's 6 gigahertz and it was the only one, but it was all this Vantiva USA. So and if you look, it's either hidden networks or Xfinity Wi-Fi. So these are all networks that are not controlled by the people who are using it, right? They're using, so Sea Wizard, that's my neighbor Walt. Hi Walt, if you're watching. He was in the IoT insights into IoT episode. This is my buddy Walt across the street. But I noticed that when I looked at 6 gigahertz, his was the only one I could see. But then when we were talking to him about it, he realized when his daughter got the new iPhone 15 Pro, it hated 6 gigahertz. He had to turn off his 6 gigahertz radio in order to get his house to work because his new devices hated 6 gigahertz. But if you notice, and I was like, that's Vantiva USA. But then I noticed like all of these neighbors that have Vantiva USA right here. So all of these Xfinity Wi-Fi and hidden networks, that's where we're seeing the WPA3, and then they upgraded to 6 gigahertz, so then it did it automatically. But yeah, Funky Chicken, Eric, Amy, but all this Xfinity, so all this Vantiva, so they all upgraded to get the new hotness that turns out they're not even using. Somebody's using Ubiquity there. Oh, then we have Ruckus, Pekatron, got some Eris, some older stuff, but that's still Xfinity. So that's where all that comes from. But yeah, this Vantiva is where I figured out that I can see like all these, and I know the 6 gigahertz is running because my neighbor's the only one that turned it off because he realized he was having problems. But I can't see all the 6 gigahertz for these Vantivas. But my neighbor, CW Wizard, when he had it on, that was the only one I could see. So that's going to save 6 gigahertz or make 6 gigahertz better in residential because they're running at low power indoor. Right now, once they switch and they go to a higher power, maybe I'll see more of them down here. Whereas right now, this is what we see at 5 gigahertz and all these Vantivas. So if we apply that as a filter, yeah, this is all Vantiva, and there's 6 gigahertz running on all of these different networks.
So I feel like we should nominate you for one of those community service awards that we do at CommScope, because you've gone out and you've educated your neighbors. Walt has been a subject of the discussion on at least one of our shows, and he's been the inspiration for what's coming in 2024.
Yeah,
and you've helped your neighbors. You're improving the Wi-Fi. I mean, that's true community service right there, my friend.
So, all right.
I think that's time for us to call it a day.
Yep.
I guess we'll thank everybody for joining. I appreciate everybody that's spent time. I know Gearman and Martin and a few others seem to be coming over from the EU. So that's, you're talking about dinner time or a little bit after. I mean, Gearman turned down pizza for staying.
Yeah, go eat your pizza, man. I wouldn't turn down pizza for us.
There's nothing wrong with pizza, cold pizza or otherwise. We'll probably wind up doing this again. This was fun.
Yeah.
This actually went pretty well. And if you guys aren't listening already, please, check out the RUCKCast. We're available pretty much everywhere that you can listen to a podcast. We've added the episodes onto YouTube.
Yep.
We're going to bring back video in some form or fashion in the coming weeks.
Yep.
So, yeah, and hopefully we'll see some of you folks in Phoenix.
Vote for the Wi-Fi awards if you haven't. You still got 4 more days to vote for the Wi-Fi awards. So vote for us. Shameless plug.
Nothing shameless about it, but. Other than that, guys, I hope everybody has a great rest of the week.
Yeah,
and
happy New Year.
You guys on the next one.
Yeah, we'll see you guys See you guys later.
All right. If you want to contact the show directly, you can email us using the address ruckcast@comscope.com. To learn more about Ruckus products and services that we may have talked about on this or any other podcast, please check the links in the About section of the show.